Hey everyone, it's Ten Types, and Pitch Black is coming up pretty soon. When I say pretty soon, I mean it's coming out in like a month. And I am definitely very excited for this set. It's honestly pretty good compared to the recent Mega Era sets. Not going to dive into that today about how the other sets recently haven't been super good, but this set is pretty good. I think it is definitely the best of the Mega Era expansions, other than, I guess, Mega Evolution itself, and depending how you count Ascended Heroes. But this set is pretty nice. I will say the very best card in this set probably isn't quite as good as the very best card from Perfect Order, Ascended Heroes, or Chaos Rising, those being Meowth EX, Special Red card, and also Pokepad. Those three cards are all very good, especially Pokepad, but even I'd say Special Red card is the worst of those, and the best card from this set, one, isn't even super clear, but two is also probably not quite as good, though still pretty good, the top end cards from this. And we have some new decks from this set, and honestly, the set's pretty good. All these 10 cards here are pretty solid, I would say. I'm going to kind of group them into some different tiers. I do want to give some honorable mentions as well. Also, the last thing I want to talk about before I dive into it is the unreleased promo cards. These cards, I'm not sure if they're going to end up. I don't know where they're going to end up. I'm not going to lie. These cards are cards that are out in Japan. They've been out in Japan for a little while and aren't out internationally. Of these, none of them are particularly good, but they are cards that exist. Grisham's actually an okay counter to some Frostlass Munkidori stuff, I guess, or Dragapult, but it's not great. Jet's a not very good draw supporter. Megadolphox EX is just actually, I forgot what this card did. Apparently, it gets Pokemon into play, but is a Stage 2 Mega there and has another attack, but not very good. Slowpoke, probably not very good there. I don't know how it compares to the other Slowpoke we have. There's Mega Slowbro EX, which is actually okay-ish, but not that good. So you got some unreleased promo cards here. By the way, this is on PokemonProxies.net, or sorry, PokemonProxies.com, and these are proxies. These are not the official cards, so I was to say the wording could change, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I also have them up on Limitless here. But then we are moving to the first card, which is an honorable mention. Again, I have three here. The first one is Banette, or Hide and Sneak. Hide and Sneak is the actual name of the archetype here, or the ability. The ability protects you from effects of attacks and effects of abilities from your opponent's Pokemon. This is fine, I suppose. Theoretically, it is a good ability to have to protect you from certain things like Dragapult, but as we'll get to, you don't really want these Pokemon in play. Banette as an attacking option might be okay. I personally don't think it's really worth using much at all, but it has been played some, I think, to attack with. I don't know. I haven't seen gameplay of the deck because, it's not out yet internationally, and I haven't seen Japanese gameplay footage of this deck, but this card, alongside the other hide and sneak cards, are in some ways pretty good. When I say in some ways, they don't really do anything because you're just going to discard them to use the hide and sneak Pokemon. And as we'll see, I guess a bit of a spoiler, there is one deck that is, or one card from the deck that is like the key card, which is quite good, and it will be on this list. And I'll get to that in just a moment, or maybe more than a moment. But the hide and sneak stuff is worth mentioning and is kind of good depending how you rate it. But again, the cards themselves don't really do anything on their own, so that's why I don't have them on the top 10. Then, speaking of cards that don't do anything on their own, we have Slowpoke here. This card is a Slowpoke with 70 HP. Currently, Slowking is a pretty decent deck. Looking at the metagame online, it's deck 2. In plays, looking in person, it's deck 3. So it's a pretty good deck. You can make an argument that's the best deck besides Dragapult. I actually made a gameplay video on my channel. I don't do that many gameplay videos other than new set stuff, which of course makes you subscribe so you don't miss when I actually do play with these new cards when the set comes out. But Slowking's pretty decent, and having a Buddy by Poffin searchable Slowpoke is nice, theoretically, but you do lose 10 HP to survive, and then also you're not really running other 70 HP basics that much. You're using them some. Being Psychic as well is important for telepathic Psychic energy. Being Psychic is more important than having 70 HP or less, but having 70 HP or less is kind of nice. I think this card is kind of it might be played. I don't think it's necessarily, looking at Slowking lists in Japan, some are playing this as a 2 of, but it's not a 4 of, and also the deck's not that good. And of course, this card doesn't really do anything on its own. It does let you discard some cards, which is kind of fun. And the archetype as part of, including the new Slowbro is pretty cool. Not super good, but Slowpoke is fun. I guess, and I'd include it. People kind of complain that I didn't include it on my tier list. Some people say it should be S tier, which it shouldn't, but Slowpoke is worth mentioning. Then we have the third card here. This is definitely worse than the other two, or you're going to see less play, I imagine. This card is honestly probably pretty bad, but also arguably the card I'm most excited for from the set. It's Silvally here with the ability Call a Buddy. Again, this is the translation of the ability name. As far as I'm aware, could be wrong. I don't think the official names have been revealed for that many of these things. But once during your turn, you can use this ability to search for any supporter, reveal it, and put it into your hand if you have no cards in hand. This is actually, by the way, super good with the supporter card Cassiopeia from Shrouded Fable, a card I kind of forgot about until I saw it in a list. This lets you search for any 2 cards and put them into your hand if it's the last card in your hand, which if you're using Silvally, it will be. So legitimately, I think Silvally plus Cassiopeia is okay. Yeah. It's not crazy good, but it is okay. We'll actually talk a little bit about, again, a bit of a spoiler here, another card that works with this, so we'll dive into that a bit more. But Silvally I don't expect to be good, but also it's like super fun, so I kind of had to include it. Moving on to the number 10 card, though. This card, we're moving again into the top 10. I'd say bottom 3 are cards that I think will see some play, but aren't super good, and also aren't that interesting, but again, they are decent, and they have been seeing some legitimate competitive play in Japan. The first card here is Chiyu. This card has Spiraling Envy for 1 darkness. You do 20, but you do 90 more if this Pokemon has 2 more damage counters on it. You don't apply weakness or resistance. Or I guess you would apply resistance, but that doesn't matter. But you don't apply weakness there. So this card is fine, I suppose. There are some darkness decks which focus specifically around Toxtricity, where you put damage counters on your Pokemon. There's also a Mega Darkrai EX. I think Chiyu's a bit better than Mega Darkrai EX, though I guess I'll mention that here. It's okay. So this card is fine. It's honestly pretty boring. You can't attack with the turn 1, really, to do 110. If you could, it would be a lot better. And there's another card, the Dhelmise I mentioned earlier, that can do something similar, but just like way better. A different deck, certainly, but you look at this, you can kind of compare it to maybe Hops Skirma. It's a comparison, maybe something like Fan Rotom or Solrock, but again, those are attacking turn 1. This card's okay. I think it probably goes in Toxtricity decks. Toxtricity decks do get a bit better with this set, so this is fine here. I think it slots pretty nicely in at number 10. Then we have the next card, Toucannon. Toucannon I've talked a lot about on the channel, made a whole video on it. I might have made multiple whole videos on it. I'm not sure, but it lets you draw a card every turn on a stage 2, which is like not super good. Then Feather Rondo 60, 20 more for each bench Pokemon, both yours and your opponents. This is both cheaper than and stronger than the Lilith Clefairy EX we have in Standard, which is very good because of its ability, right? It can attack, and it's an okay attacker. Toucannon is also an okay attacker. It's seen play in some different things. I think it's seen some play in Alakazam to give you a bit more of a stable draw engine, I guess. Something like that. It's seen play with just a bunch of different Pokemon, and has allowed it to do different things to do different. So, I don't know. Ultimately, it's kind of whatever. It's pretty much exactly what it looks like, which is kind of meh. It also needs to be realistically paired with a Terra, because you need to be able to use Area Zero Underdepths. Then requires a Terra, which is a basic 2-prizer, and now you have this liability, so being a single prizer doesn't quite work there. Also, the Terras don't really synergize with Toucannon that much, outside of, I guess, Terapagos, which is okay. There's some stuff with this card. I don't think it's super good. It's a pretty boring card, to be honest, and its stats are like fine, so it's okay. I think it belongs in the top 10, I suppose. I don't think it's going to be played in the long run. There are definitely some more interesting cards from the set, like the Silvally, as well as some others that I didn't include on this list that maybe belong. I guess I include this card, the Bastiodon, as well, as an interesting control piece. I just don't quite expect that card to see play. That's like a lot more, I guess, interesting. It's not interesting for your opponent, but it is a more interesting card than this, but this is probably a little better. Then we have Mega Excadrill EX. This one, I imagine some people are going to think is really low. I don't think this card, so most of these cards I'm a little higher on than most people, because it is, obviously my list is the cards I like, or the cards that I think are in the top 10. Mega Excadrill EX I am a lot lower on than other people, I guess. I mean, when it was revealed, people didn't think it was super good, but seeing play in Japan, I will still say that it is like dropping in plays like every week. That's true for most new decks. I'm not going to write this deck off for that reason. For example, Mega Starmie was actually in a very similar place. I mean, admittedly, it was seeing like crazy amounts of play. It actually, I believe, is the only deck since rotation that has been played more than Dragapult at one time. That was right when it came out in Japan, and it was played more than Dragapult by a little bit. I also was in a similar spot thinking Mega Starmie EX wasn't really good at all or that interesting. It's proven itself to be fine, I suppose. Mega Extra Duel EX requires a lot of setup, which in my opinion is kind of clunky. That being said, I think the card and the deck as well, which is paired with Metang and Genesect EX, is mediocre, but not terrible. I mean, you can do 330 here for 5, which is a bunch of energy, but it is payable once you get the Metangs and stuff going. So Mega Extra Duel EX is fine here. Moving on to the next tier, we got the tier of, I'd say, more interesting upside, and we got Gladiant's Decisive Battle. Gladiant's Decisive Battle is actually a really cool card. Its actual use cases are somewhat interesting as well. They're not as cool as maybe they could be. This is, intended to be paired with the Silvally archetype, or the Silvally, the Slowbro, which I guess is the best of the no-hand size Pokemon, and also the Thievul, or the Nickit. I think Thievul is the evolution, right? So you got that there, and that is. I mean, you got those Pokemon, they're kind of bad. But then you have Gladiant's Decisive Battle. You do 80 more to your opponent's active Pokemon if you're attacking with a Pokemon without a rule box, and you can only play this if it's the last card in your hand. This card, quite simply, it's just a bunch of extra damage. It's really good, specifically in Festival Lead, where you double up, essentially, the amount of extra damage you're doing. I mean, if you're hitting your opponent's active and you kind of look at it as doing 200 for one, then you're doing, instead of 280, you're doing 360 there. So you're going to be doing quite a bit of extra damage, getting that extra 160, which is kind of crazy. Or if you're taking knockouts on 2 different Pokemon, you're doing 180 twice. You theoretically could knock out 2 Meowth EXs. Your opponent would be presumably kind of stupid to let you do that, but that is possible because they send up the second Pokemon there. But Gladiant's Decisive Battle is pretty good in that deck. I wouldn't say it's a complete game changer for it, but maybe it is. I'm not sure. Festival Lead's kind of not super good. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Slowking, Alakazam. These decks that are okay, though. They have legitimate upside and can be crazy at times, but can also kind of fall apart just like a house of cards. But they are pretty cool, and Gladiant's Decisive Battle is nice for that deck. Obviously, it is only good for non-rule box decks. Also, Alakazam is one of the better ones. It doesn't work there at all. It really doesn't work with Alakazam because you'll have so many cards in your hand, and also you don't do regular damage, so it's like completely useless. But you look at like maybe Slowking, that seems like a big ask. I'm thinking about the different single prize decks, and I know it's seen play in some of them. You could even pair this with something like Badoo to do 90 with a Badoo or something like that. I don't know. This card is fine. I mean, legitimately 80 extra damage is really good. The ability to actually use it is kind of clunky. You're going to use Ultra Balls predominantly, I think. I'm trying to think of other ways to do it, and there aren't really other very good enablers at all. It's mostly Ultra Ball here, but with Ultra Balls, with something like Festival Lead, you have a lot of search, so that will allow you to get where you need to be. You could also use this in a deck like a Noctowl deck. Obviously, we're talking about like Toucannon, maybe something like that, because you do need to still be a single prizer, not a multi-prizer, which Noctowl is obviously working with multi-prizers, with all the Terras being multi-prize. But Gladiant's Decisive Battle is still a decent supporter for some different decks. I don't expect it to be played in tons of top decks or be a super meta card, but it's definitely a decent supporter here. Then we have the next card, Voltaic Lightning Energy. This card is a special Lightning Energy. It provides Lightning Energy when attached to any Pokemon. However, it only provides the benefit when attached to a Lightning Pokemon, where you do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Quite simply, cards like this are good. We've seen them in the past. They've always been good. Lightning type is kind of terrible in Standard right now, unfortunately. But Voltaic Lightning Energy is good. It is very good. Admittedly, this card could either be a lot higher on the list because what it does on its own is super good, or it could be lower on the list because the cards it works with aren't super good. And this is actually very similar to the next card, which I have a bit more to add to, which is Fossil Excavation Site. More to add to than I did with the special Lightning Energy there, which is just like play it in like lightning decks, but lightning decks also kind of want basic energy, so it can be a little clunky there as well. But Fossil Excavation Site is super good. This card is a stadium that lets you essentially just search for 2 fossils and put them onto your bench, specifically cards with antique in their name, so it does search out an expanded, I guess, antique old amber, and then it also, an expanded, notably doesn't search out like the other fossils, but in standard it searches out all the fossils. There are some new ones. I mentioned the Bastiodon, which is kind of cool, but not antique. You got Fossil Excavation Site, which just searches out your fossils, which is like super good because you can't really do any other way. I mean, you could do with Team Rocket's Petrol, but now you can use that to search out 2, which is so much better. And also, like, that's kind of terrible using your supporter just to search for an item, essentially using your supporter as like a Pokemon search card. That's, I mean, I guess it's kind of versatile. It's kind of like Brock Scouting, which is like okay, but even then, it's not super good, using your supporter in that role, especially it's like a rock scouting for the evolution, not even the 2 basics there. So Fossil Excavation Site, it's so good, right? This card lets you get your fossil into play. Obviously, the question is how good are the fossils? I think some people have the impression that all the fossils are completely terrible. Like if they're a regular Pokemon, they'd all be hot trash, which is not true. Specifically with Tortuga, Tortuga is really good. It's a stage 1 for 1 water. Well, theoretically, it's really good. There's a stage 1 for 1 water. You do 30 for each of your items in your opponent's discard pile. This enables you to do a bunch of damage theoretically. It's kind of weird because your opponent has control over it. I will say it's got a bit of a proven track record with the Trashland Garbodor. I don't know if I'd quite say an all-time great card, but a certainly very good card, that just like saw a lot of play, admittedly paired with the other Garbodor there, that ability locked, but the Trashland Garbodor, in some ways it also, because like it's force your opponent to not play items. It doesn't make him not play items like Badoo, but it encourages them to not play items. So if they're not playing them, it's kind of like item lock, certainly discouraging them from like, say, thinning their deck, because if you're playing against this, you don't want to just Ultra Ball to thin. That feels pretty, like, the value of thinning is not that high. So if you just and then the downside of playing it is now bad. So if you like threaten them with this, then you're going to see that some results, even if it's not amazing there. But then also, when they're playing their items, you're doing a good chunk of damage. The question is how many items are they going to play, how much damage you're actually doing there. Kind of depends on the situation. But overall, the Tortuga is pretty strong, and the Trashland Garbodor was good. It did less damage, actually. I mean, the multiplier was 20 instead of 30. However, it did account for tools, and you could actually get rid of your opponent's tools through the use of cards. I mean, you can still get rid of your opponent's tools, but they're not items anymore. So that is a meaningful downside. And of course, the basic is a fossil. I will say there are other fossils. I mentioned the Bastiodon. That's okay. And I mean, honestly, most of them are kind of okay-ish. Like Archeops is kind of fun, kind of cool. Tyrantrum, I guess, is kind of cool as well. I played that in pre-release. It's very tanky. It's not very strong, but it is very tanky there. So this will improve all of those decks, but Tortuga is good enough to potentially see actual meta play. It is still a bunch of deck space. You need to be playing the stadium now. I don't think it's that awkward playing the stadium. Probably as a 4. I mean, if you're leaning into Tortuga, if you're running a 4/4 Tortuga line with 4 Fossil Excavation Site, that feels fine, in my opinion, to like. I mean, the deck space is a lot, but the getting into play, I think, will be completely fine there. But with Fossil Excavation Site, now you're taking up extra deck slots. It does give you a stadium bump, so that is kind of cool. But it is, and also you don't need to hit the stadium. Yes, hitting the stadium is good because you get 2, but you could just like hit the fossil as well. So now you have twice as many outs. That's kind of the idea there, because you can't search the fossils. By the way, the basic fossil item cards with Pokemon Search, because they're items. But Fossil Excavation Site with Tortuga, long story short, it's good. I think. I really want it to be good because I've said Tortuga's good. I played Tortuga and it's felt really good when I played it at times, but also very sketchy. I think this kind of fixes some of the sketchiness, and I think it will see some play. But looking at Japan, it hasn't seen play. But I also haven't seen talk about Tortuga either. So I think this is going to be good, but we'll see. Moving on to the next card, we got Rust Syndicate Grunt. This is a card that just what it does is it gets rid of energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon on a supporter if one of your Pokemon is knocked out last turn. It's good. I mean, you see Crushing Hammer in Standard be good. This is probably worse than Crushing Hammer, but it is more consistent, which is more fun, certainly. This card is, just getting rid of energies is good against something like Dragapult specifically, which obviously is very good, but other decks as well. Getting rid of energies is kind of always nice, and there's definitely a point in games where you kind of have extra supporters to play, I guess. I mean, you probably need to search out with Meowth or something like that, which is a bit of a pain, but something that's pretty doable as well, because, it's probably going to be a one of in your deck, but it's definitely a decent card. It's one of the more boring cards. Honestly, a lot of the good cards from the set are also some of the boring cards, but I do think Rust Syndicate Grunt is pretty good here. We have the next card in a very similar vein. This is Dark Bell. This is an item that confuses both actives as long as they're not darkness. The darkness thing doesn't matter too much, I wouldn't say. The confusing Pokemon is nice, forcing them to have to flip to attack, or they can retreat out of it. If you pair this with a retreat lock, then they have to flip to attack, or just not attack. Of course, they can just flip heads, so there's a chance that happens. But Dark Bell is fine. I mean, I don't love special conditions. I really don't like them, to be honest. Specifically, I don't like coin flips, I should say. So Dark Bell is kind of annoying, but it's definitely, I would say, a decent card here. I don't think it's a super game-changing card, but I do think it is good, and I think it will probably see play in Dragapult. We've seen this card see play in Dragapult as well as the Rust Syndicate Grunt, the supporter we just talked about. Both those cards are decent disruptive cards. I think Dark Bell's a little bit better, though I don't think it's a ton better. They're both decent and will see play, and will probably be a little annoying, but are pretty good as well. We have the next card here, which is the Dhelmise. I have it as the number 2 card here. I think this deck is pretty legit, and the heart and soul of it is Dhelmise. For 1 Psychic, you do 170. If you have 4 more Pokemon, you discard with Hide and Sneak. This is doable. I mentioned Ultra Ball is the main way to discard, which it is. There's another card spoilers we'll get to in a second. But then there's also the Stadium as well, Prism Tower, which is pretty decent. I didn't mention it for the hand size stuff because it also draws you a card there, but that is super good with Dhelmise. By the way, you do want to get Prism Tower before the set comes out, presumably. I'm going to probably make a list of cards to get. Not necessarily like you need to buy them, but just to have on your radar. And that card is one. And so Dhelmise pulling this off turn going second, I think is super doable, super consistently. You also obviously one-shot with Lilia's Clefairy, you actually one-shot Dragapult EX, which is super nice, but you're just a very efficient single-price attacker. I will say as the game goes on, I'm a little worried about it, but Dhelmise is just really good. The issue is, what's the other stuff you're doing? Dhelmise isn't necessarily enough to carry a deck through the late game, but in the early game, it's legitimately maybe the best attacker in the game. This card is so crazy good and just so efficient. This card's really good. Then we have the next card here, which is Gwen, the best card in the set, in my opinion. This is a supporter card that you discard up to 2 Pokemon from your hand without rule boxes, and then you draw 3 cards for each card discarded in this way. This is useful for the hide and sneak deck, so that is worth mentioning. But I mean, it just draws a bunch of cards, and that's really good. I said this before, I don't think we have a super good draw supporter in Standard outside of Lily's. I think the gap is very large, admittedly because Lily's is probably the best draw supporter ever, but also we don't have another top 10 draw supporter in Standard. I guess the closest would be Judge, which at times has been good, but I mean, you're looking at supporters right now, you look at Lily's for draw, and that's it. Most decks a lot of decks aren't playing anything else. We're running Meowth EXs, but Gwen's just super good. Admittedly, you need to be playing lots of non-rule box Pokemon. Luckily, most of the best decks of the game do, as in Dragapult's mostly non-rule box Pokemon. Dragapult EX itself, of course, is a rule box Pokemon. You look at the Dreepies and the Dracolics, you look at the other stuff you can put in as well. A lot of those are single prizers. So this is going to be online a bunch. You need to discard stuff. You can just get it back with Night Stretcher, which I actually do think is still underrated. I'm personally playing it as a 4 in most of the decks I'm playing. That's not necessarily something that you have to do, but it is something that is really good. So, I mean, Gwen is just a very good supporter card for drawing cards and seen play in some different decks in Japan as well. I think it's a little underrated, but I certainly expect it to end up as one of the top 10 cards from the set. I don't know if it'll end up as the best card based on what I've heard and seen from it, but just look at it. I mean, it just draws a lot of cards. Drawing cards is good and something any deck could use more of. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this list. Tell me if there are any cards I completely left off. I mean, there are other cool cards from the set. Like looking at it, you see some fun EXs and some mostly some fun EXs that I didn't talk about. But this set is honestly pretty good. Like there's so many good stuff. There's so much fun stuff. But I hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure you like, subscribe, visit, comment down below your thoughts. Also, huge shouts to my YouTube members for supporting me because it really does help support me in the channel. But even just liking and subscribing and watching the videos, I really appreciate all of you. And as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.